Hello, welcome to another First Chapter Friday. I am so pumped to share this with you. It is the first chapter of Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. It is the prequel that chronologically comes after Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I've finished reading it. I needed to do that in order to give you my review at the end. There'll be time markers in the description about my review. I will have spoiler section and a non-spoiler section. Okay. If you somehow don't know, this is the Haymitch story for the second quarter quell. And part one is called The Birthday. Happy birthday, Haymitch! The upside of being born on Reaping Day is that you can sleep late on your birthday. It's pretty much downhill from there. A day off school hardly compensates for the terror of the name drawing. Even if you survive that, nobody feels like having cake after watching two kids get hauled off to the Capitol for slaughter. I roll over and pull the sheet over my head. Happy birthday! My 10-year-old brother Sid gives my shoulder a shake. You said be your rooster. You said you wanted to get in the woods at daylight. It's true. I'm hoping to finish my work before the ceremony so I can devote the afternoon to the two things I love best. Wasting time and being with my girl, Lenore Dove. My mom makes indulging in either of these things a challenge, since she regularly announces that no job is too hard or too dirty or tricky for me. And even the poorest people can scrape up a few pennies to dump their misery on somebody else. But given the dual occasions of the day, I think she'll allow for a bit of freedom, as long as my work is done. It's the game makers who might ruin my plans. Hey, Mitch, the sun's coming up. All right, I'm up too. I roll straight off the mattress onto the floor and pull on a pair of shorts made from a government-issued flour sack. The words courtesy of the Capitol end up stamped across my butt. My ma wastes nothing. Widowed young when my pa died in the coal mine fire, she's raised Sid and me by taking in laundry and making every bit of anything count. The hardwood ashes in the fire pit are saved for lye soap. Eggshells get ground up to fertilize the garden. Someday these shorts will be torn into strips and woven into a rug. I finish dressing and toss Sid back in his bed, where he burrows right down in the patchwork quilt. In the kitchen, I grab a piece of cornbread, an upgrade for my birthday, instead of the gritty, dark stuff made from the Capitol flour. Out back, my ma's already stirring a steaming kettle of clothes with a stick, her muscles straining as she flips a pair of miner's overalls. She's only 35, but life's sorrows have already cut lines into her face, like they do. Ma catches sight of me in the doorway and wipes her brow. Happy 16th. Sauce on the stove. Thanks, Ma. I find a saucepan of stewed plums and I scoop some on my bread before I head out. I found these in the woods the other day, but it's a nice surprise to have them all hot and sugared. Need you to fill the cistern today, Ma says as I pass. We've got cold running water, only it comes out in a thin stream that would take an age to fill a bucket. There's a special barrel of pure rainwater she charges extra for because the clothes come out softer. But she uses our well water for most of the laundry. What with pumping and hauling, filling the cistern's a 2-hour job, even with Sid's help. Can it wait till tomorrow? I ask. I'm running low, and I've got a mountain of wash to do, she answers. This afternoon, then, I say, trying to hide my frustration. If the reaping's done by 1, and assuming we're not part of this year's sacrifice, I can finish the water by 3 and still see Lenore Dove. A blanket of mist wraps protectively around the worn gray houses of the seam. It would be soothing if it wasn't for the scattered cries of children being chased in their dreams. In the last few weeks, as the 50th Hunger Games has drawn closer, these sounds have become more frequent, much like the anxious thoughts that I work hard to keep at bay. The second quarter quell. Twice as many kids. No point in worrying, I tell myself. There's nothing you can do about it. Like 2 Hunger Games in one. No way to control the outcomes of the reaping or what follows it. So don't feed the nightmares. Don't let yourself panic, and don't give the Capitol that. They've taken enough already. I follow the empty cinder street to the hill with the miners' graveyard. A jumble of rough markers spikes the slope. Everything from headstones with carved names and dates to wooden boards with peeling paint. My paws buried in the family plot, a patch of Abernathy's with 1 limestone marker, doing for us all. After a quick check for witnesses, no one's here much, and certainly not at dawn, I crawl under the fence into the woods outside District 12, and I began the trek to the still. Brewing white liquor with Hattie Meany is dicey business, but it's a picnic compared to killing rats or cleaning outhouses. She expects me to work hard, but she works hard herself. And even though she'll never see 60 again, she can do more than a person half her age. There's a lot of grunt work involved. Collecting firewood, hauling grain, taking in the full bottles and toting back the empties to be refilled. That's where I come in. I'm Hattie's mule. I stop at what we call the depot, a bare patch of ground concealed by the drooping boughs of a willow tree, where Hattie drops off supplies. 2 25-pound sacks of cracked corn a weight, and I swing one over each shoulder. It takes about half an hour to reach the still, where I find Hattie tending a pot of mash next to the remains of a small fire. She offers me her long-handled wooden spoon. Why don't you give this a stir? I drop the bag of corn under a lean-to where we keep supplies, and I raise the spoon of victory. Whoa! A promotion! Me being allowed to handle the mash is something new. Maybe Hattie's starting to train me to be a partner one day. 2 of us brewing full-time would increase the output, and there's always more demand than she can meet, even for the eye-watering stuff she makes with the capital grain. Particularly for that, since it's cheap enough for the miners to afford. The good stuff gets bought up by disorderly soldiers, peacekeepers, that is, and the richer folk in town. But bootlegging's illegal 10 different ways, and all it would take is a new head peacekeeper, one who didn't like a stiff drink himself, to land us in the stocks or worse. Mining's tough work, but they don't hang you for it. While Hattie packs pint bottles of white liquor into a basket lined with moss, I squat down and stir the mash, on and off. When it's cooled some, I pour it into a deep bucket and she adds the yeast. I set the mash in the lean-to so it can ferment. She's not distilling today, since she doesn't want to risk the smoke attracting attention if the mist burns off. Our local peacekeepers may turn a blind eye to Hattie's still and her stall in the hob, an old warehouse that serves as our black market. But she's worried their capital counterparts in their low-flying, cloaked hovercraft will spot us from the air. No hauling in bottles today either, so I'm tasked with chopping wood for the week. When the pile's replenished, I ask what else needs doing, and she just shakes her head. Hattie's endeared herself to me by throwing in a tip sometimes, not with my wages, which she pays directly to my mother, but by slipping me a little something on the sly. A handful of cracked corn that I can take to Lenore Dove for her geese, a packet of yeast I can barter with at the hob, and today a pint of white liquor for my own use. She gives me her broken-toothed grin and says, "Happy birthday, Haymitch. I figure you're old enough to make it. You're old enough to drink it." I have to agree, and although I'm not a drinker myself, I'm glad to get the bottle. I can easily sell it or trade it or possibly pass it on to Lenore Dove's uncle, Clerk Carmine, so that he might have a kinder opinion of me. You'd think the son of a washerwoman would be harmless enough, but we Abernathys, we're known as rebels back in the day, and apparently we still carry the scent of sedition, scary and seductive in equal parts. Rumors spread after my father's death, rumors that the fire had not been an accident. Some say he died sabotaging the mine, others that his crew was targeted by the capital bosses for being a pack of troublemakers. So it could be my kin's the problem. Not that Clerk Carmine has any love for the peacekeepers, but he's not one for yanking their chain either. Or maybe he just doesn't like his niece running around with a bootlegger, even if the work is steady. Well, whatever the reason, he rarely gives me more than a terse nod, and once he told Lenore Dove that I was the kind that died young, which I don't think he meant as a recommendation. Hattie yelps as I impulsively give her a hug. Aw, enough of that. You still sparking that Covey girl? I'm sure trying, I say, laughing. Go bother her then. More use to me today. She dumps a scoop of cracked corn into my hand and shoos me away. I pocket the corn, and I take off before she can change her mind about her best gift. Unexpected time with my girl. I know I should probably head home and get a jump on filling the cistern, but I can't resist the thought of a few stolen kisses. It is my birthday, and for once that cistern can wait. The mist begins to thin as I run through the woods to the meadow. Most people comment on its beauty, but Lenore Dove calls it the friend of the condemned, because it can hide you from the peacekeepers. She tends to take dark view of things, but maybe that's to be expected from someone named for a dead girl. Well, half for a dead girl, called Lenore in an old poem, and half for a shade of gray, which I found out the day I met her. It was the fall after I turned 10, and the first time I'd ever snuck under the fence that surrounds our district. I'd been deterred by both the law and the threat of wild predators, which are real but rare. My friend Burdock had finally worn me down, saying he did it all the time, and there's nothing to it. They were still apples if you could climb, and I could climb, and I loved apples. Plus, him being younger than me made me feel like a big scaredy cat if I didn't. Do you want to hear something? Burdock asked as we ventured deep into the woods. He tilted back his head, and he sang out in that remarkable voice of his, high and sweet, kind of like a grown-up woman's, but cleaner and nothing warbly about it. Everything seemed to go still, and then the mockingjays began to pick it up. I knew they'd sing for other birds, but I'd never heard them sing for a person before. Pretty impressive stuff, until an apple dropped smack onto Burdock's head, cutting him off. Who's squawking at my birds? A girl's voice demanded, and there she was, about 20 feet up, sprawled out on the branch like she lived there. Crooked pigtails, dirty bare feet, munching on an apple, a small cloth-bound book in her hand. Burdock cocked his head and laughed. Hey, cuz, you allowed out here alone? 'Cause I'm sure you're not. Well, I didn't see you, she said. Me you either. Toss us down some, would you? In answer, she stood up on her branch and began to bounce up and down, showering us with apples. Hang on, I got a sack with my bow. Burdock ran off. She scooted down the branches and swung to the ground. She wasn't one of Burdock Everdene's cousins, but I knew he had some distant ones on his ma's side. I'd seen her around at school. Kind of shy, I thought, but I didn't know her to speak to. She didn't seem in a rush to change that, just stood there looking over until I broke the silence. I'm Haymitch. I'm Lenore Dove. Dove like the bird? No, Dove like the color. What color's that? Same as the bird. That started my head spinning, and I guess it never quite stopped. Soon after school, she waved me over to a dog-eared dictionary and pointed. Dove color, warm gray with a slight purplish or pinkish tint. Her color, her bird, her name. After that, I started to notice things about her. How her faded overalls and shirts concealed snips of color, a bright blue handkerchief peeking from her pocket, a raspberry ribbon stitched inside her cuff. How she finished up her lessons quick, but didn't make a fuss about it, just stared out the window. And then I spotted her fingers moving, pressing down imaginary keys, playing songs. Her foot slipped from her shoe, her stockinged heel keeping time, silent against the wood floor. Like all the covey, music in her blood. But not like them too, less interested in pretty melodies and more in dangerous words. The kind that lead to rebel acts. The kind that got her arrested twice. She was only 12 then, and they let her go. Now it would be different. As I reached the meadow, I slip under the fence and pause to catch my breath and drink in the sight of Lenore Dove, perched on her favorite rock. The sunlight picks up the hint of red in her hair as she bends over an ancient piano accordion. She coaxes a melody out of the wheezy old thing, serenading a dozen geese grazing on the grass, her voice as soft and haunting as moonlight. They hang the man and flog the woman who steals the goose from off the common, yet let the greater villain loose that steals the common from the goose. It's a treat to hear her sing, since she never does it in the public. None of the covey do. Her uncles are really more musicians than singers, so they just play tunes and leave the singing to the audience if they're so inclined. Lenore Dove likes this better anyway. Says it makes her too nervous to sing in front of people. Her throat closes up. Clerk Carmine and her other uncle, Tam Amber, have raised her since her ma died in childbirth. Seeing her pa's always been something of a mystery. They're not blood kin, her being a Baird, but the covey look out for their own. They worked out a deal with the mayor, whose house boasts the only real piano in District 12. Lenore Dove can practice on it if she plays during an occasional dinner or gathering. In her faded green dress, an ivy ribbon tying back her hair, lips tinted orange. When her family performs around District 12 for money, she makes do with the instrument she's playing on now, which she calls her tune box. The law demands that we atone when we take things we do not own, but leaves the lords and ladies fine who take things that are yours and mine. This is not a song her uncles let her play at the mayor's house, or even when she performs around District 12. There's a danger that some people might know the words and start a ruckus. Too rebellious. And I have to say, I agree with Clerk Carmine and Tam Amber. Why go around asking for trouble? Plenty to be had without inviting it in. The poor and wretched don't escape if they conspire the law to break. This must be so, but they endure, those who conspire to make the law. I scan the meadow. It's secluded, but we all know there are eyes everywhere, and eyes generally come with a pair of ears. The law locks up the man or woman who steals the goose from the common, and geese will still a common lack, till they go and steal it back. Lenore Dove explained to me once that the common was land anyone could use. Sometimes the peacekeepers chase her and the geese off the meadow for no reason. She says that's just a teaspoon of trouble in a river of wrong. She worries me, and I'm an Abernathy. A few of the geese hissed to announce my arrival. Lenore Dove's was the first face they saw when they hatched, and they don't love anyone but her. But since I've got corn, they'll tolerate me today. I toss it in a ways away to call off her bodyguards, and I lean in to kiss her. And then I kiss her again and again, and she kisses me right back. "Happy birthday," she says when we come up for air. "Didn't expect to see you until after." She means the reaping, but I don't want to talk about that. About it. "Hattie let me go early," I tell her. "Gave me this too. A present for my big day." I pull out the bottle. "Well, that won't be hard to trade, especially today. Besides New Year's, today's when most people get drunk. 4 kids. That's gonna hit a lot of families. I guess we're going to talk about it." "It's gonna be all right," I say, which rings hollow. "You don't really believe that, do you?" "Maybe not, but I try to, because the reaping's going to happen no matter what I believe. Sure as the sun will rise tomorrow." Lenore Dove frowns. "Well, there's no proof that will happen. You can't count on things happening tomorrow just because they happened in the past. It's faulty logic." "Is it?" I say. "Because it's kind of how people plan out their lives." And that's part of the trouble. Thinking things are inevitable, not believing change is possible. "I guess, but I can't really imagine the sun not rising tomorrow." A crease forms between her eyebrows as she puzzles out a response. "Can you imagine it rising on a world without a reaping?" "Not on my birthday. I've never had one that came without a reaping." I try to distract her with a kiss, but she's determined to make me see. "No, listen," she says earnestly. "Think about it. You're saying, today is my birthday and there's a reaping. Last year on my birthday there was also a reaping. So every year there will be a reaping on my birthday. But you have no way of knowing that. I mean, the reaping didn't even exist until 50 years ago. Give me one good reason why it should keep happening just because it's your birthday." For a girl who's quiet in public, she sure can talk up a storm in private. Sometimes she's hard to keep up with. Lenore Dove is always patient when she explains stuff. Not superior, but maybe she's just too smart for me. Because while it's a fine idea, thinking about a world without no reaping, I don't really see it happening. The Capitol has all the power, and that is that. "I didn't say it was just because it was my birthday. I said," what did I say? I can't even remember now. "Sorry, you've lost me." Her face falls. "No, I'm sorry. It really is your birthday, and here I am going on about who knows what." She digs in her pocket and holds out a small package wrapped in a scrap of dove-covered fabric, tied with a ribbon, the same dappled green as her eyes. "Happy birthday. Tam Amber made it. I traded eggs for the metal and helped him design it." Besides playing a crazy good mandolin, Tam Amber's the best hand forger in District 12. He's the go-to blacksmith for new gadgets or broken parts for old machines. Burdock has a dozen of his arrow tips that he treats like gold, and some of the richer folks in town have jewelry he made from actual gold or silver, melted down from heirlooms and refashioned. I can't think what he's made for me, but I eagerly untie the bow. The object that slips into my palm doesn't register at once. It's a thin strip of metal shaped like a C. My fingers naturally grip the curved back as I examine the colorful animals facing off at the opening. The head of a snake hisses at the beak of a long-necked bird. I flatten out my hand and see that their enameled scales and feathers travel around the piece until they merge and become indistinguishable. 2 small rings are welded on, one behind each head. For a chain, perhaps? It's beautiful, I say. It's to wear, right? Well, you know I like my pretty with a purpose, Lenore Dove replies cryptically, making me work it out myself. I turn it over in my hand, then grip the sea again, this time covering the animal heads with my fingers. And then I see its purpose. The smooth steel edge isn't solely decorative. It's a flint striker, I conclude. It sure is. Only you don't have to have flint. Any decent sparking rock like quartz will do. At home, we have a beat-up old striker, passed down through my ma's family. Ugly and dull. On long winter nights, she made me practice with it until I could reliably get fire going, so we wouldn't have to waste money on matches. A penny saved is a penny earned. I ran my fingers over the fine metal work of the feathered neck. I wouldn't want to ruin it. You won't. That's what it's made for. She touches the snake's head and then the bird's in turn. It takes a lot to break these two. They're survivors. I love it. I give her a long, soft kiss, and I love you like all fire. All fire is covey talk, but that expression is ours. Usually it makes her smile, but she's dead serious now. You too. We kiss until I taste salt. I don't have to ask why. Look, it's okay, I assure her. We're gonna be fine. She nods, but the tears keep trickling. Lenore Dove, we're going to get through today, just like last year and the year before, and eventually move past it. But we won't really, she says bitterly. No one in 12 will. The Capitol makes sure the Hunger Games is burned into our brains. She taps the bottle. Guess Hattie's in the right business, helping people to forget. Lenore Dove! Clerk Carmine doesn't holler, but he has one of those voices that carries without needing to. He stands at the edge of the meadow, fist shoved in his patched overalls. He's a fiddler and protective of his hands. Better be getting ready. I'm coming, she says, wiping her eyes. Clerk Carmine doesn't comment on her state, just shoots me a look that says he holds me responsible, and then he turns on his heel. He never paid me much mind until Lenore Dove and I got serious. Since then, nothing I do seems right. I once told Lenore Dove that I thought he just hated love. That's when she revealed that he'd been together some 30 years with a fellow in town who replaces busted windows. They have to keep it quiet because loving differently can get you harassed by the peacekeepers, fired from jobs, arrested even. Given his own challenges, you'd think that Clerk Carmine would be a champion of our love. I'm certainly supportive of his, but I guess he thinks Lenore Dove could do better. She hates us to be at odds, so all I say is, I'm definitely growing on him. That gets her to laugh enough to break the mood. I can come by after. Got some chores, but I should be done about 3. We'll go to the woods, okay? We'll go to the woods. She confirms it with a kiss. Back home, I take a cold water bucket bath and pull on the pants my pa got married in, and a shirt my ma pieced together from handkerchiefs from the Capitol store with the miner's shop. You have to at least try to look dressed up for the reaping. Turn up in raggedy clothes, and the peacekeepers hit you, or arrest your parents, because that's not how you show respect for the Capitol's war dead. Never mind that we have plenty of war dead of our own. Ma gives me my birthday presents, a year's supply of flour sack underwear, and a brand new pocket knife, with strict instructions that the latter's not to be used for the mubble-tea peg or other knife games. Sid presents me with a piece of flint rock wrapped in a grubby bit of brown paper saying, I found it in the gravel road by the peacekeeper's base. Lenore Dove said that you'd want it. I pull out my flint striker and try it out, making some beautiful sparks in the process. And though Ma isn't sold on Lenore Dove, given that she's a distraction, she likes the striker enough to thread a leather bootlace through the metal rings and tie it around my neck. "It's an awful fine striker," says Sid, touching the bird wistfully. "How about tonight I teach you how to use it?" I suggest. He lights up at the promise of doing grown-up stuff, combined with the promise that I'm not going anywhere. "Yeah?" "Yeah." I ruffle his mop of hair so his curls go every which way. "Quit!" Sid laughs and bats my hand away. "I gotta comb it again." "Better get on it," I tell him. He runs off and I drop the striker down my collar, not ready to share it with the world, not on reaping day. I've got just a few minutes to spare, so I head into town to trade. The air's turned heavy and still, promising a storm. My stomach clenches at the sight of the square plastered with posters, crawling with heavily armed peacekeepers in their white uniforms. Lately the theme has been "No Peace," and the slogans bombard you from every side. No peace, no bread. No peace, no security. And of course, no peacekeepers, no peace. No capital, no peace. Hanging behind the temporary stage in front of the Justice Building is a huge banner of President Snow's face with the words, "Panem's #1 peacekeeper." At the back of the square, peacekeepers check in the reaping participants. As the line's still short, I go ahead and get that over with. The woman won't meet my eye, so I guess she's still capable of shame. Or maybe it's just indifference. The apothecary shop has a flag of Panem in the window, which pisses me off. Still, this is where I will get the best deal on my white liquor. Inside, the sharp odor of chemicals makes my nose twitch. In contrast, a faint sweet scent comes from a bunch of chamomile flowers resting in a jar, waiting to become tea and medicine. I know Burdock collected these in the woods. Of late, he's added wildcrafting to his game business. The place is deserted except for my classmate Astrid March. She's arranging tiny bottles on a shelf behind the counter. A long blonde braid falls down her back, but the damp heat has brought out tendrils of hair that frame her perfect face. Astrid's the town beauty, and rich by District 12 standards. I used to hold that against her, but she showed up one night in the seam, alone, to treat a neighbor woman who had been whipped for back-talking a peacekeeper. She brought some ointment she concocted herself, and then slipped away, never mentioning payment. Since then, she's who people turn to for help when a loved one goes under the lash. I guess Astrid has more substance than her pack of snooty town friends suggests. Besides, Burdock's nuts about her, so I try to be nice even though he's got about as much chance with her as a mockingjay with a swan. Town girls don't marry scene boys, not unless something really goes haywire. "Hey, you got any use for this?" I place the white liquor on the counter. "For cough syrup or some such." "I'm sure I can find one." Astrid gives me a fair price, then throws in a sprig of chamomile. "For today. They say it's good luck." I slide the stem into a buttonhole. "Who says? Burdock?" She blushes a bit, and I wonder if I'm wrong about his chances. "Maybe it was him. I can't recall." "Well, we could all use a little luck today." I glance at the flag in the window. Astrid drops her voice. "We didn't want it there. The peacekeepers insisted." Or they'd what? Arrest the marchers? Bust up their shop? Close them down for good? I feel bad I judged them earlier. "No choice then." I nod to the chamomile. "You wear some too, okay?" She gives me a sad smile and nods. I go next door to the Donner's sweet shop and I buy a little white bag of multicolored gumdrops, Lenore Dove's favorite, just for us to share later. She calls them rainbow gumdrops and swears she can tell the flavors apart, although they all taste exactly the same. Mary Lee Donner, who's in my class, waits on me in a crisp pink dress and matching ribbons in her sandy hair. No one's going to arrest the Donners for looking shabby. Fortunately, Astrid paid me in cash, because the Donners won't take scrip, which is what the Capitol pays the miners with. It's technically only good in the Capitol store, but a lot of the merchants in town take it, and my ma gets plenty of it in the laundry business. When I step outside, I smile for a second at the Donner's pretty candy label, thinking about meeting Lenore Dove in the woods. And then I see that it's time. The giant screens flanking the stage have lit up with the waving flag in honor of the Hunger Games. 50-some years ago, the districts rose up against our capital's oppression, kicking off a bloody civil war in Panem. We lost, and in punishment, every 4th of July, each of the districts routinely has to send 2 tributes, one girl and one boy, between the ages of 12 and 18, to fight to the death in an arena. The last kid standing gets crowned as the victor. The reaping is where they draw our names for the Hunger Games. 2 pens, one for the girls and one for the boys, have been clearly marked out with orange rope. Traditionally, the 12-year-olds gather in the front and the kids get older until you reach the 18-year-olds in the back. Attendance for the entire population is mandatory, but I know my ma will keep Sid at home until the last possible minute, so I don't bother looking for them. Since Lenore Dove's nowhere to be seen, I head to the section designated for 14 to 16-year-old boys, thinking about my odds. Today I have 20 slips of paper with my name in the reaping. Every kid automatically gets 1 each year, but I have an additional 3 because I always take on 3 tesserae to feed myself and my family members. A tessera gets you a ration of tinned oil and a sack of flour marked courtesy of the Capitol for 1 person, collectible each month at the Justice Building. In exchange, you have to put your name in the reaping and extra time for each tessera that year. Those entries stick with you and add up. 4 slips a year times 5 years, that's how I have 20. But to make things worse, since this year's the 2nd quarter quell, marking the 50th anniversary of the Hunger Games, each district has to send twice the usual number of kids. I figure for me, it's like having 40 slips on a regular year. And I don't like those odds. The crowd thickens, but I can see one of the 12-year-olds up front trying to hide that he's been crying. In 2 years, Sid will be there. I wonder whether it'll be me or Ma who sits him down beforehand and explains about his role in the reaping, how he has to look nice and keep his mouth shut and not cause any trouble. Even if the unthinkable happens and his name gets drawn, he's got to suck it up, put on the bravest face that he can muster, and climb onto the stage because resistance is not an option. The peacekeepers will drag him up there, kicking and screaming if they have to, so he should try to go with some dignity. And always, whatever happens, remember, his family will love him and be proud of him forever. And if Sid should ask, but why do I have to do this? We can only say, because this is the way things are. Lenore Dove would hate that last bit, but it is the truth. Happy birthday! Someone bumps my shoulder, and there's Burdock, in a frayed suit, and our friend Blair, who's inherited a dress shirt 3 times too big from his older brother. Blair smacks a pack of roasted peanuts from the Capitol store against my chest. May all your wishes come true. Thanks. I pocket the nuts in my gumdrops. You 2 didn't have to dress up for me. Well, we wanted your day to be special, says Blair. What kind of idiot gets born on Reaping Day anyway? The kind that likes a challenge, said Burdock, with appreciation. Just playing the hand I was dealt. But you know what they say. Unlucky at cards, lucky in love. I arranged my chamomile. Hey, look what your girlfriend gave me, Birdie. Our attention shifts to the girl's pen, where Astrid stands talking with Mary Lee and her identical twin sister, Maisie Lee, who is the most stuck-up girl in town. Her friends know about you, Everdeen? Asks Blair. Nothing to know, said Burdock with a grin. Well, not yet, anyway. The sound system crackles to life, sobering us up. Just then, I see Lenore Dove sidestep a peacekeeper and squeeze into the pen. She's looking fine in a roughly apple-red dress she sometimes performs in. Her hair pulled up with metal combs that Tam Amber made her, fine and grim. A recording of the anthem blares over the square, rattling my teeth. Jamma Panem, mighty city. We're supposed to sing along, but instead we mumble whatever, just keeping our lips moving at the right time. The screens project images of the capital's power, armies of marching peacekeepers, airborne fleets of hovercraft, tanks parading through the wide avenues of the capital up to the presidential mansion. Everything is clean and expensive and deadly. When the anthem ends, Mayor Allister takes the podium and reads the Treaty of Treason, which is basically the surrender terms for war. Most of the people in District 12 weren't even alive then, but we're sure here to pay the price. The mayor tries for a neutral tone, but her voice leaks disapproval in a way that guarantees she will be replaced soon. The decent mayors always are. Next, fresh from the capital comes Drusilla Sickle, a plastic-faced woman who escorts our tributes to the Hunger Games each year. I have no idea how old Drusilla is, but she's been showing up in District 12 since the first Quarter Quell. Maybe she's around Hattie's age? It's hard to tell because she has a line of what look like fancy thumbtacks circling her face, pulling her skin back and pinning it in place. Last year, each one was decorated with a tiny buzz saw blade. This year, the number 50 seems to be the theme. As for her clothes, she's clearly struggled to incorporate two fashion trends, military and sassy. The result is her current outfit, a lemon yellow officer's jacket with matching thigh-high boots and a tall hat with a visor brim. Feathers fan out from the top of the hat, making her look like a deranged daffodil. No one laughs, though, because here she's the face of evil. Two peacekeepers set giant glass balls holding the tribute entries on either side of the podium. Ladies first, says Drusilla, dipping her hand into the ball on the right, extracting a single slip of paper. And the lucky girl is... She pauses for effect, twirling the name in her fingers, smirking before driving in the knife. Luella McCoy. I feel sick. Luella McCoy lives 3 houses down from me, and a smarter, spunkier 13-year-old doesn't exist. An angry murmur ripples across the crowd, and I can feel Blair and Burdock tensing up beside me as Luella climbs the steps onto the stage, flipping her black pigtails over her shoulders and scowling as hard as she can. She tries to look tough. And this year, ladies, second as well. Joining Luella will be... Drusilla hands stir in the slips of the ball and fishes out another name. Maisie Donner. My eyes find Lenore Dove's, and all I can think is, it's not you. At least, not for another year. You're safe. The crowd's reacting again, but more in surprise than anger, because Maisie Lee is a purebred town girl and about as highfalutin as they come. What with the Donners being merchants and the general consensus being that her pa will be tapped to succeed Mayor Allister. Town kids are rarely tributes, because they don't generally have tesserae like those in the scene. In the girl's pen, Maisie Lee's gripping Astrid's hand while weeping Mary Lee embraces her. their 3 blonde heads pressed in a tight knot. The Maisie carefully disengages herself and smooths her dress, which is identical to her twin's pink one, only in a shade of lavender. She pretty much always has her nose in the air, but now she holds it extra high as she walks to the stage. Now it's the boys' turn. I brace myself, preparing for the worst, as Drusilla plucks a paper from the ball on the left. And the first gentleman who gets to accompany the ladies is Wyatt Callow. I haven't seen Wyatt Callow around school for a while, which probably means he hit 18 and started in the mines. I don't really know him. He lives on the other side of the seam and keeps his head down. I hate myself for the relief that I feel watching him approach the stage, his measured steps and vacant expression revealing nothing. I feel bad for him, too. Wyatt has to be closing in on his 19th birthday. A big deal in the districts because that's when you age out of the reaping. As Drusilla's hand dives back into the ball, it seems too much to hope that both Lenore Dove and I will escape this terror, that in a few hours we'll be far away from the square, locked in each other's arms in the cool shade of the woods. I suck in my breath, preparing for my death sentence. Drusilla peers at the final name. And boy number 2 is Woodbine Chance. An involuntary huff escapes my lips, echoed by several boys around me. Lenore Dove looks over, tries to smile, but can't help shifting her attention to the latest victim. Woodbine's the youngest and handsomest of those crazy Chance boys. They all get so wild when they drink that Hattie won't sell them white liquor for fear it will bring down the peacekeepers. So they have to buy it from the old Bascom Pie, who has no scruples and sells rock gut to anyone with enough coin. If the Abernathys give off a whiff of sedition, the Chances reek of it. And they've lost more family members to the rope than I can keep track of. Rumor has it Lenore Dove might be related to them on her pa's side. They seem awfully fond of her, even if it's not official. One way or another, there's a connection there that Clerk Carmine discourages. I can see Woodbine, who's a few rows ahead of me, projected up on the screen. He makes as if to follow Wyatt, but then his gray eyes flash defiantly, and he whips around and sprints for an alley. His kinfolk shout encouragement, and bodies instinctively block the peacekeepers. Just when I'm thinking he might make it, all those Chance kids run like greased lightning. A shot rings out from the Justice Building rooftop, and the back of Woodbine's head explodes. Well, I'm going to give you more of a review in a moment, but oh my gosh. At first, it was so exciting to hear Haymitch didn't get picked, but we all know he gets picked. So this was a pretty dramatic way for him to wind up being that pick. First, no spoilers. The book was absolutely riveting at the beginning. There was about the midway point where I felt like there was a little bit too much explanation going on. I want them to show me everything. I don't want to hear a lot of explanation and planning and stuff, okay? And then I'd say in the last quarter of the book, it got really exciting again, and I couldn't stop reading. I got up because I couldn't go to bed. I couldn't sleep. I got up and finished reading the book. It just was that type of book. So hoping that you guys try it too. It absolutely adds to the whole story of the Hunger Games. And a couple things that I will point out. Haymitch is actually, this is the Flint striker, and Haymitch is the spark. So we have our Katniss being the flame of the revolution, but it had to start somewhere, and it was Haymitch. Not a surprise, but it was very poetically woven into the story, and I had no idea what the heck this was on the cover. I thought that was very clever, and I also thought all of those name drops that we get, you hear someone's first name, but maybe you only knew them by the last name in the previous books. I love that aspect of this. And what other things? Just, it was great to be in this universe again. So that's all my non-spoiler. And everyone who hasn't read the book, go away, because now comes the spoiler. My first impression reading the beginning, which I was very into, was that it was kind of a gender swap. I felt like Haymitch literally could have been Katniss, only he's a guy, and then his little brother is the equivalent of Katniss's little sister. The way he left to, go into the reaping and all these going off to the Hunger Games, he was talking about how are they going to survive without me? I'm the one that provides for them type of thing. Exactly like Katniss's story. It still didn't bother me, though. I was still excited. Yes, there was the equivalent of Gale in, Lenora Dove, but it still felt unique enough that I didn't care. Lenora Dove absolutely is a lot more intelligent a person than Haymitch, and Haymitch has an enormous character arc in this story. At the beginning in this chapter, you hear him saying, well, that's how it is. It's just how it is. We just go along with it. It's how it is. But meanwhile, she's the one who gives him the flint sparker. She's the one who plants the seed, hopefully. It must have worked because it happens, that things don't need to be the way they are now. Just like things weren't this way 51 years prior, they can be different again if we make them different. She even had some allegory to the snake and the bird being they're survivors, and you could feel that she was trying to say, we can be survivors too. This is our way, by lighting the spark of revolution. It was neat because, the Covey are the people that Lucy Baird, came from, that if you read the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, you would understand the musicians, the singers, it's in her blood. We don't know who her father is. And there is a mystery that is alluded to by Maisie Lee that I didn't pick up. So if you picked it up, she was going to tell some secret that had to do with Lenora Dove and never did. And since I didn't get it, could you please mention it in some coded way in the comment section? Because I want to know what that mystery was. Maybe because I was reading late at night, I didn't pick it up. The other things that were very similar to Hunger Games, where Rue was this tiny size 13-ish person that became kind of like the pet to Katniss. That was Lulu, who became his pet. There were a couple swap things that I liked, and there were the creatures that were the mutts, the mutations. They were a lot less lethal seeming in this story than in the others. It's okay that they weren't. Probably they needed to up how dramatic things were in the games as time went on, and that's why in the Hunger Games and in Catching Fire they were more lethal. But I also felt like the tension in the actual Hunger Games was really dulled. There never was this tension between the career people and the districts that are raised to feel proud to be tributes. And without that, it kind of felt like they were an afterthought. When they finally are in contact with Haymitch, they're done in two, hello, there goes the major career people that we were worried about in 2 pages. So I feel like that could have been improved, but The romance, the motivation, seeing the character arc of Haymitch, seeing how he becomes the completely, he still has changed, but he's not satisfied with the way things are by the end of the story. But he is not, it's like he's biding his time, waiting to find how he can reignite somebody else to be the new spark, the new flame, which obviously becomes his involvement with Katniss. There were a couple other stories, characters like Plutarch and Effie, Trinket. I liked how those characters were given their backstories, and it made the segue into the Hunger Games better, I think, because of the inclusion of them in Sunrise on the Reaping. So overall, I would 100% say you must read it if you enjoyed the Hunger Games. I definitely think it would be ideal if you read it in order, including the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes before this, though you don't have to. And yeah, there you go. That's my review with the spoilers, and I hope you have a wonderful week. If there are any other books that are about to come out that you want me to be the first person to read that first chapter to you and give my review, then let me know what those titles are. Yeah, just may the odds be with you and all that good stuff. Take care. Bye.